Judge Amy Berman Jackson is a Harvard graduate who spent a decade at a high-powered D.C. law firm representing sleazy politicians and turncoat spies. She was appointed to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia by President Obama in 2011. Despite being billed as a nonpartisan appointment, Jackson's liberal leanings have made themselves apparent over the course of her reign. It was during the Russia collusion investigation that her value to the deep state became all too apparent. In fact, she has presided over most of the most important cases that have resulted from the Mueller investigation. In October of 2017, Jackson was assigned to preside over the criminal case that Robert Mueller brought against Paul Manafort and Rick Gates. She accepted their plea bargains and guilty pleas, but when the prosecution claimed Manafort was attempting to influence witnesses, Jackson revoked Manafort's bail and sent him to jail to await the trial, where he lingered in solitary confinement for weeks. She then claimed he violated his plea bargain, allowing her to void the agreement completely and remove his sentence reduction. She would ultimately sentence Manafort to 6 years in prison, 7.5 years when combined with the concurrent punishment from a Virginia district court. During sentencing, she went out of her way to deliver what the New York Times called a blistering critique of Mr. Manafort's character, denouncing him as a man who, quote, spent a significant portion of his career gaming the system, and criticizing his, quote, ostentatiously opulent lifestyle with, quote, more houses than a family can enjoy, more suits than a man can wear, as if one's decisions to buy suits should influence the jail sentence he receives. So, does the judge truly get to throw you in a cage for years on end based partly on whether or not she thinks you need that second house that you bought? It's absurd that such personal preferences should be included in an official sentencing decision by a federal judge, but Judge Amy Berman Jackson has a pattern of such bias. In fact, when sentencing another Mueller defendant, Alex Vanderswan, she again criticized his privileged life and seemed to alter his sentence based on the fact that this was a political and well-publicized case. So, of course, Judge Amy Berman Jackson was assigned to Roger Stone's case the very day he was arrested. He appeared before her at 11 that morning to hear the charges, where she set his bail at $250,000, and she restricted his travel to a few cities on the East Coast. He walked out of the courtroom to a massive crowd, but as he attempted to hold a press conference, a small group of hecklers was allowed to shout him down and entirely drown out his statement.
During my testimony to the House Intelligence Committee, that is incorrect. Any error I made in my testimony would be both immaterial and without intent.
So after having been pulled from his home in a pre-dawn raid in front of national television cameras and having been accused of crimes against the state that could put him away potentially for life, his one opportunity to plead his case in front of the nations was robbed from him by a couple of shrieking protesters. Luckily, he took to InfoWars to make his case.
And after a 2-year investigation, none of these charges relate to Russian collusion or WikiLeaks collaboration or any other illegal act connected to the 2016 election.
Judge Jackson worked quickly to limit Roger's ability to discuss his case freely, imposing a limited gag order, ordering him to refrain in the vicinity of the courthouse, that is, from talking to the news media or making statements that, quote, pose a substantial likelihood of material prejudice to the case. Not long after, she went even further. Of course, Twitter had already suspended Roger. Remember, the system is holistic. It's totalitarian, and it works together. So he often went to Instagram to post his thoughts. He'd pull an image from Google to accompany the text and write something out. Now, a couple of weeks after his arrest, Roger posted an Instagram image of Jackson, and next to her was a symbol, a cross in a circle, part of the background of the picture. The symbol was, in fact, the logo of a website that hosted the picture, but it was interpreted by the media as being the crosshairs of a gun and a clear and very dangerous threat of violence. Now, they're ignoring not just the source of the symbol, but the obvious fact that the gun sites have to actually be on target to be of any use at all. Nevertheless, Roger was dragged back into court, where Judge Jackson mulled revoking his bail and jailing him then and there, like she did with Paul Manafort. She threatened to modify her gag order, claiming his public pronouncements could inflame crowds outside of the courthouse. Now, this was hardly a reasonable claim, and the order likely came from the fact that the text of the Instagram post pointed out Judge Jackson's quite obvious Democratic bias. Well, that's right. Don't inflame the public by pointing out my political bias, Mr. Stone. So with the media-provided excuse of you posted a picture of a cross near my head, Jackson prohibited Stone from posting on social media unless he was asking his followers to support him in his legal defense fund or to proclaim his innocence, and banned him from discussing anything at all related to Mueller or the Russia investigation. But that still wasn't far enough for Amy Berman Jackson. In June of that year, she went further, still outright banning Roger Stone from posting to all social media, including Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, any topic. She effectively silenced him to the entire outside world. This time, what was his transgression? His transgression had been to criticize the mainstream media. Now, he called Politico, quote, biased, elitist, snot-nosed, fake news heads whose specialty is distortion by omitting key facts to create a false narrative. He also said it was funny how there was no New York Times or Washington Post coverage of bombshell findings his lawyers had filed. In addition, he had the temerity to, get this, as NPR put it, criticize the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Representative Adam Schiff of California. And for this horror, Judge Jackson found Roger guilty of violating her gag order, saying he was using social media to gin up more public comment and controversy about the legitimacy of the Mueller investigation, which, of course, we now know was entirely illegitimate from the start. You're just not allowed to question it. She expanded the gag order, barring Roger from social media, including forwarding, reposting, retweeting, or even liking other people's posts.
Don't be a victim. If you're worried about the coronavirus, exercise, but not too hard because that can lower your immune system. Drink extra purified, clean water so that no toxins weigh you down, but you have plenty of hydration. Prayer and meditation has been proven to make you healthier. Get plenty of vitamin C, get plenty of vitamin D3, which is fish oil. Take your colloidal silver, all of it. That's what allows you to be healthier, and get plenty of sleep. We have sold out of the 16-ounce immune gargle that has the nano silver that's patented and documented and even admitted in documents we've shown to go after this whole corona SARS family of viruses. We're almost sold out of the 1-ounce spray bottles. That'll be sold out in a couple days, and we're in about a week and a half or so of the super silver 3-ounce bottles. Great to have, period. Really good for your gums, really great for your teeth. We also have the super silver in our whitening toothpaste. Again, we're the only folks allowed to private label or make our own products with this top nanotech company based here in the U.S. that's in all these Homeland Security documents and everything, because we get the best stuff, and there's a lot of patriots. There's not just bad guys coming after us, there's the flip side of all the good guys and good gals, and it's very exciting.
Now that Roger Stone has had his freedom of speech ripped away from him on spurious grounds, with the ever-present threat of solitary confinement for months on end should Judge Jackson's whim happen to turn that way, it was time to really get the ball rolling. Now, one of the first things to happen in a criminal trial is jury selection, in which both sides get to pick from a pool of possible jurors. The purpose of this exercise is to attempt to weed out those jurors who would prove less than impartial. Prospective jurors who enter the proceedings with a clear bias one way or the other are eliminated, ensuring that the jury in the case will hear arguments from both sides and judge them based on their merit alone. In a widely publicized, hyper-political case such as this one, this process is even more important than usual, as the only way a fair trial can be held is to assure that the jurors chosen don't have a political bias coloring their verdict. So when one prospective juror turned out to be Sylvia Burwell, an ex-Obama administration press secretary whose husband still works for the Justice Department division that played a role in the Russia probe, well, it was an obvious conflict of interest, and Roger Stone's lawyers requested that she be struck from the list. But this is the swamp, remember, and the swamp creatures set the rules. Judge Amy Berman Jackson denied the request. The prospective juror admitted to having negative views of Donald Trump, and she said she'd followed the media coverage of special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. Now, these would be completely disqualifying in any typical criminal trial. But Judge Jackson approved of her participation on the grounds that the woman said she didn't have strong views about Stone. Okay, well, it's fine then, right? Now, if the past 3 years have taught us anything at all, it's that the anti-Trump Democrats believe they're standing up to a Hitler-like figure, Satan himself, and that any underhanded or illegal tactics used to get rid of the big bad orange man are well worth it. I mean, after all, what's one little lie, one little white lie, one little fib when you're trying to stop the creation of the new Fourth Reich? So yeah, no, I don't have strong feelings about Roger Stone at all. Now, sources close to the trial say that out of 82 prospective jurors, only 2 indicated they were Republican, and they were immediately struck down out of hand. Even one woman who'd worked for the Reagan administration was dismissed as a potential juror because of a supposed conflict of interest. However, jurors who have worked under Obama or who have expressed their hatred for Trump have been selected with no qualms whatsoever. Following the verdict, juror number 3 was revealed as being Seth Cousins, another lifelong Democrat partisan and supporter who penned an op-ed dripping with self-righteous indignation against Roger Stone. Oh, but that's fine too, right?
During the jury selection process at Roger Stone's trial, lawyers asked the eventual foreman of the jury if there was anything that would affect her ability to judge Stone fairly. No, she claimed, she hadn't paid much attention to the Russia probe. That turned out to be a lie, and a stupid one at that. That juror's Twitter account is public, and it turns out that she's an anti-Trump zealot who closely followed the Mueller investigation. In one tweet, for example, she called Donald Trump, quote, the Klan president. When Stone was taken into custody in a dawn raid by dozens of federal agents armed with automatic weapons and an airboat, she mocked the idea the arrest was excessive. Oh, seems fine to me. This is not a neutral person. This is not someone capable of judging this trial fairly. This is a partisan who lied about who she was. Roger Stone is facing life in prison because an Obama-appointed judge, Amy Berman Jackson, allowed this woman to run the jury.
She obviously had a prejudice against Roger Stone, a bias in favor of his prosecution, and an interest in seeing him convicted. That should automatically disqualify her.
Now, pro-Stone demonstrators were also not allowed anywhere near the courthouse. But of course, activists from Right Wing Watch were allowed to permanently be on site and yell slurs at Stone as he came in and out of the building. This is just the double standard that we've grown used to and accustomed to over time. By November 2019, the deck had fully been stacked against Roger Stone in every possible way. So it's time for the show trial to proceed. The trial featured testimony from the likes of Rick Gates and Steve Bannon, and it lasted only 10 days. On November 15th, the jury returned with their verdict, guilty on all 7 counts. His sentencing was set for February 20th, 2020, but his gag order has not been lifted. On the 10th of February, the prosecutors announced their request for punishment, 9 years in prison. 9 years for talking about publicly available information. 9 years for misremembering dates. 9 years for trying to defend himself against malicious prosecution. This outrageous request brought a torrent of backlash from Stone's supporters, including President Trump. The Justice Department even objected, saying that, quote, the department finds the recommendation extreme and excessive. I would hope so. Such a rebuke could not be tolerated by the prosecution, however, who abruptly resigned in protest. All 4 members of the prosecuting team resigned immediately, apparently unwilling to continue work if they were to be denied their demand of locking up Roger until he was nearly 80 years old. These people aren't unbiased. They feel like they are on a holy mission to destroy Roger Stone and Donald Trump. Now, it remains to be seen what his punishment will actually be and whether Donald Trump will actually do anything to back up his supposed fury at the mistreatment of his biggest champion. But any jail time Roger receives will just be the final blow to a man who has already been absolutely destroyed by the corrupt system he's fought for so long. A political advisor and information broker, he had his livelihood stripped away from him by relentless spying by the FBI and slander by the mainstream media. A media personality himself and radio show host, he found himself gagged and silenced. A man of modest self-earned wealth, he had his bank accounts and even his grandchildren's college funds drained to pay for his legal defense. He survives now mostly on the kindness of supporters who donate to his legal defense fund or from residuals of his book sales. He's been isolated, bankrupted, humiliated, and slandered beyond all repair, only now to face time in federal prison. And for what? Not cooperating with a crooked investigation? For resisting the deep state's attempt to destroy a president that the American people elected? This investigation was never legitimate, and this trial was never fair. Roger Stone posed a challenge to the whole corrupt Washington establishment, and that establishment went after him with every dirty trick in their book. The reality is that Roger Stone did not receive a fair trial as guaranteed by the United States Constitution. He faced a rogue special prosecutor with unlimited spying powers predicated on fabricated evidence. He faced a Justice Department infested with anti-Trump partisans out for blood. He faced a media as dishonest and conniving as they are spiteful, a judge with a clear political bias and a track record of throwing the book at Trump's allies, and a jury stocked with associates of his most bitter political foes. This is what passes for justice in modern America, and it's a disgrace. Political partisanship has wormed its way to the very bowels of our judicial system and has robbed the American people of their trust in a once sacred institution. The truth is that Roger Stone has been fighting against the system all his life. He's fought for freedom for 5 decades, always working the system, but always keeping his hands clean, using spectacle and panache where others use deceit and blackmail, always staying one step ahead of his political rivals. He is perhaps the man most responsible for the Donald Trump presidency, second only to Donald Trump himself. He's not your typical Republican. He's flashy with unmatched sartorial flair. He's fearless and relentless with a long memory and a biting wit. He's an advocate for cannabis legalization. He's a swinger who calls himself a trisexual, as in I'll try anything once. He's a libertarian who runs roughshod over the stuffy GOP blue bloods while fighting more effectively for freedom than any party-approved suit and tie. He appears on InfoWars, Breitbart, Fox News, and CNN. He's charming, principled, and above all, effective. And that, at the end of the day, was his crime. Being cool, being anti-establishment, and being a more effective political operator than the system could handle. Mitt Romney will never face the ire of the establishment. He's just as milquetoast, boring, and willing to compromise as Republicans are supposed to be. Hillary Clinton will never face justice for her crimes because she serves the system and the system serves her back. Roger Stone, however, will face a possible 9 years in prison later this month. Not, as it says in the court documents, for obstructing an investigation into Russia or threatening a witness, but for providing to all the world proof that you don't need to be a weak-willed corporate type or an illiterate redneck to be on the right wing. He proved you can be just as cool and uncompromising and outrageous as the left, and you can win. Roger Stone deserves to be pardoned by President Trump. His right to a fair trial was robbed from him, and he's been the victim of a political witch hunt meant to punish those who supported President Trump in his rise to power. I encourage everyone watching this to sign the petition, to call the White House, call your senators and congressmen, donate to the Roger Stone Legal Defense Fund, wear your Roger Stone gear out, and in fact, reach out to Roger Stone to let him know that his sacrifices will not be in vain. He's changed the world forever, and that his example will serve as the blueprint for retaking America.
They don't seem to understand all they're doing is driving more average Americans into the Trump camp and into the silent majority. It's offensive that they don't love their country. It's offensive that they don't respect our democracy, our Constitution. This country's not perfect. It's only the best place on the face of the earth.
This has been Harrison Smith for Infowars.com and Band.video. You can support everything that we do here by going to InfoWarsStore.com and purchasing some of the prepared storable food or supplements, t-shirts, hats, books, DVDs, all sorts of good stuff, and all of it goes directly back into producing this type of bombshell information and this type of true, full-hearted defense of our liberties and those who fight for them.
InfoWars, the most banned network in the world.
I hope this virus isn't as bad as it looks like it is, but I just see Providence at work again, that we have the nano silver that it turns out in 2007 was certified by the Pentagon, by A&M, and in Homeland Security letters to take out the SARS coronavirus family. But I use it as immune gargle, so I can gargle it out, spit part of it out. You can drink part of it. You can drink it all if you want. It's at 15 parts per million, but it's a nano silver. We've sold out of the 16 ounce. We're gonna sell out of the 3 ounce and the 1 ounce very, very soon. So InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com, get your immune gargle with nano silver. Also, their wound gel is even stronger. Don't ingest this, same nano silver, but strongest over the counter you can find. And all of the super blue and super silver whitening toothpaste has that that nano silver as well. It's just good for you overall, really good for your body, good for your gums, and it funds the InfoWar. And we're selling out of the storable food, but it's still available. You can still get it, but now time to take action. InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. And again, most storable food companies are already sold out. We still have it at the same high quality, low prices. So that's how you fund the InfoWar and get prepared. InfoWarsStore.com. But whatever you do, please get prepared spiritually and get close to God, because 2020 is one hell of a year.